Okay. Evening, Chavra. We are up to Daf Gimel Amar Aleph, about 1/3 down the page. We're in the middle of a sugya. We said yesterday that Yonis and Ben Aziel was Matagam Navi. First, Yonis and Ben Aziel was Matagam Navi, and Abbasal came out and asked him and challenged him. Why is he doing it? And he explained why he's doing it, and they were and it was Abbasal was masking to him, it seems. And then he tried to do ksuvim, and then we said Atkan. We can't do that because that's Mashiach. So it's by the dot in the middle of the page, about a little more than a third way down. No, it's a little bit further than that. So there we go. The Gemara said Maishna. It's about a little more than a third of the way down. The first word on the line of Maishna. Maishna the Raisa Fatim Gemara. Maishna the Raisa the Loi as Daza the Loi as Daza. How come when Unclus Agar did the Mikra, did Unclus on the Torah, it didn't shackle the there was no there was no baskel about who's doing this. But as Daza, and by the Nevi'im there was an earthquake. There was a kitcher. The Raisa, the Gemara answers the Raisa Mefarish Mil. So the Raisa is meant as a guide. The Torah is a lesson of teacher. So it's mefurish in its style. Even though obviously a lot of things have to be expanded on by Chazal, but it's not meant to be sasan. The Navi there are some things that attack open, and there are some things that are hidden. This passage is in Zechariah. And Amar Rav Yosef, I would not know what this pasuk is talking about the Targum. Why? Because there's no place. These places that are referenced, they're not found anywhere. So we have no idea what we're talking about. So my comment: what's Taka? What's Targum on that pasuk? On that day, referring to when Mashiach comes, Yisagi Mispat Masud of Yerushalayim. There's going to be so many Haspedim in Yerushalayim. There's two pshatim. Either it's talking about Mashiach ben Yosef that's going to that's going to die during the when Mashiach comes, or that it's on the Yitzhahara. Kedemasu the Achav bar Amri the Kato Yasi had Adviman bar ben Avriman b'Ramas Gilad. So and on this king, there's a hesped from this king of the Achav that was killed in Ramas Gilad. With the Ishay, the Ishaya bar Aman the Kato Yasi. So these Rebikas Megillah. So there's two massive haspedim that we're referencing, and we're saying that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be more haspedim than these two times. Okay, so then there's a pasuk continues another pasuk in it's about Nevi'im, but it's in Suvim. Verisi ani Daniel Levadi. This is Daniel talking. And he said, I saw an image by myself. Esamara, I saw this image. They did not see this. They did not see the Mara. But they had a tremendous pacha that they felt. They ran and they hid. So who are these people that he's referencing? Amar Rav Yirmiyah, V'itei Rav Chia, This is Zechariah. This is Chagi Zechariah Malachi. So inu adifim minei v'ihu adif minayu. They in one way were bigger than him, and he was bigger. And in one way he was bigger than them. Inu adifim minei. They were bigger than him. The inu navi v'ihu navi lav navi. They were considered naviim, and Daniel was not considered a navi in the sense that his nevuah did not go down the dairis. He did have, I think, a nevuah at certain points, like this, the Gemara later says that there's 1.2 million Nevi'im total, but what was only written down was the Megillah Daf. So in that prat, they were bigger than him. He saw this image, the inhu loy chazu. They didn't see this. Fine. So that's a member by Rabbi Yirmiyah of Item and Rabbi Chia. That's before we had also Rabbi Yirmiyah of Item and Rabbi Chia. So we're bringing in another member from Rabbi Yirmiyah of Item and Rabbi Chia. On the story, now that we said that Chagi Zechariah Malachi did not see this vision, so my time of Avisu, why did they run? What was the pocket if they didn't see anything? Why they get nervous? So Afagav the inu loichazum is layuchazum, even though they didn't see their mazel saw. Amar Ravina Shmami na hay man demivis Afagav the ilu loichazi mazli chazi. A person can chap like a sitter and not know where it's coming from, and even if he doesn't recognize any obvious threat, it could be that his mazel sees something, and it should be taken seriously to that point. What is the remedy for such if you have such a pach and you don't know the actual extent of your exposure, what the danger is? Look at Krishma. The first thing you should do is link Krishma. And if you're standing somewhere that you can't link Krishma, it's an unclean place. The he should jump from his place 4 amas. So the question of Rabbi Zeransky said this when we did Megillah Daf Yomi. He said, "Why do you have to jump? Why don't you walk? In other words, if you have to be 4 amas away from the mazik, so then just walk away. Why do you have to jump?" So he said, if you're going to walk away, then if there's a shade there, a shandala there, he's going to walk with you, and you're going to be in the same situation just 4 amas later. But if you jump, he's going to do everything that you do. So if you jump, he jumps, but he jumps a lot stronger. So he's going to end up on the other side of the world. This is I remember from what he said. I don't remember where he got it from, but I'm right. The Eli, let's say he can't jump. Either he's whatever, he didn't work out, or he's in a tight spot. Lema hachi, he should say the following: Ease the debate tavchi shemeina minay. There's goats in the slaughterhouse that are fatter than me. The problem is the Gemara doesn't discuss what happens to the guy's taka overweight, and there are no goats that are fatter than him. The Gemara does not discuss that. I don't know. The Gemara right there. The Hashud Amrit, before we darshan on Amid Beis, we darshan Medina ear the drasha. So now continue the pasuk. Mishpacha mishpacha l'mayasa. What's the pasuk of mishpacha mishpacha? Amar Rabbi Yosef now the havi mishpachas kahuna v'levia shemevatlan avodasin uban l'shmaya mikra Megillah. The families of Kahuna and Leviah were split up into 24 shifts, and each shift would serve 2 weeks a year. And whichever family was on shift during Purim, they did not do their avodah, and they went to listen to the Megillah itself. Now it's not just they could have. I forgot who says on the page, but it could be that they were able to do the Megillah afterwards. But they were about to the avodah to do Megillah b'roig on. Even that knech it was kedai to mevat to mevat avodah for. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, Kahanim b'avadasim levim b'duchan v'yisor b'ma'adam kulam mevatlin avadasim u'bal neshmaya mikra Megillah. So all these the Yisraelim also had shifts. The reason it could be that he doesn't mention it before in the mishpacha. I don't think that the Yisraelim were divided by family because there's way too many Yisraelim to be divided by family. So you wouldn't learn out Yisraelim from mishpacha. So when he made the drasha of mishpacha, he only mentioned Yisrael, Kahanim and Leviim. But the memra is true going to everybody. The memra of Yehuda Rav saying his halacha is saying across the board. The Yisraelim also stopped what they're doing, and what the Yisraelim did was just to stand there as representatives when they shechted the carbon tamid to represent the rest of Klal Yisrael. Tana mihachi Kahanim b'avadasim Leviim b'decham v'yisar b'ma'amadan kulam mevatnu oisam avodasan uban l'shmaya mikra Megillah. Now, fine. So that's we have Rabbi Yehuda Marav says he's an Amora. We also have a brisa that supports this fact, and it's all what's up this pasuk mishpacha mishpacha. We can't samchu Rabbi. We can't samchu shal beis Rabbi shemavatlin Torah Talmud Torah uban l'shmaya mikra Megillah. They made a kavachaymer. Rebbe's mishpacha, they would stop learning. They would close the Gemara and go listen to Megillah from a kavachaymer. Which is very chamer. And you see that from this part of Mishpacha that all the avodah had to stop and they went to go listen to Megillah. Of course, Torah, you should also be that. In fact, how could you say that Talmud Torah is more? How could you say that avodah is chamer from Talmud Torah? Now this is talking about when Yeshua was fighting with Yericha, and there was a lull in the fighting, and they were not being Isaac and Torah, and a Malach approached them. But he lifted his eyes, and he saw a man standing before him. They bring down to the full pasuk over here. And he bowed down in front of him. Now the Gemara stops the story to ask the question. How could he possibly, how is he allowed to do this? A person is not allowed, if you see at night, a person is not allowed to give shalom to someone that he doesn't recognize. It could be messed even if he does recognize him at night, because he might be a shandal. Why dafka at night? I remember learning that because shadim do not have shadows. So during the day, you'll see that they don't cast a shadow. You'll know that he's a shade. But at night, you won't know that if he's a shade or not. Shani Hassams, the answer is, over the years, different. The Amar Lake is this malach, or this being, he didn't know that as malach, let's say. The Amar Lake, ki ani sar tzva Hashem. I'm coming to you as a sar tzva Hashem. Maybe he's lying. Gemiri, we have a Kabbalah. I don't know if it's a Lachma Shemsina Dafka, but it's a Kabbalah. The loy mafki shem shemayim levatala. The shin dalads, whatever their faults are, they do not use Hashem's name in vain. There's a story in the 7th paragraph in Gittim that Ashmanai, the king of the Shadim, refused to break a chain that had Hashem's name on it. You see that something about the Shem Hashem that they were very, very careful with. Amar Lai, so now we know why he was allowed to answer him Shalom. Amar Lai, so this Malach is talking to Yeshua, and it says Emish earlier today, but without them Tamid Shabin Arbayim. Earlier today, you didn't do the Tamid Shabin Arbayim, but Ashav without Talmud Torah, and now you're wasting time. You're not learning Torah. Amar Lai, Yeshua answered him, Alezim Mehen Basa. What was the trigger? What was the straw? Like what made you come here? Amalai Atabasi. I'm coming for now, which is Talmud Torah. So miyad, the next pasuk is V'yalin Yeshua b'layla ahu b'saycha emek. Now this pasuk is not referring to the same battle. It's talking about a different time that Yeshua was busy, but it's like a response to the story. The pasuk says V'yalin Yeshua b'layla ahu and b'saycha emek, and Rabbi Yochanan Melamed. Rabbi Yochanan darshan this pasuk shalan ba'omek shalacha. The Amkus of Allah he was learning. And so you see that the pasuk, the Navi, like Ilu, responds to the story with by rectifying, by saying that he learned the whole night, that he was busy with Amkus Allah at night. I'm fine. Rav Shmuel bar Unya Gadol Talmud Torah Yosem Misma Kravis Tamidin. So now we have another question. So we're saying Talmud Torah over here is bigger than the carbon Tamid. Shenamar Atabasi. So we learn out. Sorry, this is the kasha from that story. So we learn out by the fact that the Malach came because of Talmud Torah and not because of carbon Talmud. We see that that's a much bigger transgression. That was the one that triggered the Malach to come down. So he says, Atabasi, I came for right now. The more like kasha, that's not a kasha from there. Why? Because Hadarab, Hadiyachid. That Yeshua was being Malach Torah he wasn't coming because Yeshua wasn't learning. He's coming to the whole camp. The whole army was not being Isaac and Torah. So that triggered the Malach to come. Hadiyachid. And this is Rebbe, is him and his sons, whatever. They closed up. They were sitting at the dining room table learning, and they closed the Gemara to go listen to the Megillah. So that's not the same level. But the Gemara of the Yachid Kal, you're saying that the Yachid is more Kal than Avodah. I'll show you a place that even the Yachid is more Chomer than Avodah. But it's not Nashim b'Mayid. Nashim during Chalamayid Elavaya, the Nashim are allowed to ma'anais. They're allowed to all scream together. Avaloi metatzvos. But they cannot metafches. They cannot bang on their chest. There's also a way they used to mourn. They were allowed to beat their chest in agony. Rosh Chodashim, b'Chanukah or b'Purim, ma'anos u'metafches u'metafches. Then they're allowed to do both. B'zeh but either way, they're not allowed to do mekanis, which is one person wailing and the other person responding in wailing, which is apparently a lot more of a display of avelis. So we see that so this is the halach. The halach is by. So we see that by Cholamayid they're allowed to be ma'anan, and the smuchos according to Bishma are allowed to be metavches, and by Rosh Chodeshim b'Chanukah b'Purim, they could do both, but they can't do Mechanamis. Okay, so Rabba Bar Huna, Ein Moed b'Fnei Talmid Chacham. This halacha of mourning, of publicly mourning, does not apply on Chol Hamoed during a Levaya of Talmid Chacham, and Kol Shekain Chanukah b'Purim. So therefore, what? It's the right is not so clear, but it seems that by the fact that they were allowed to show open aveilus during Purim, it would be lahepach of the mitzvah of Simcha, which would also be mashma that it would also be lahepach. It would also be trump the mitzvah of Megillah. That seems to be that's the raya. But the Gemara says it's not a kash again. So we said tar di yachid because it's one Talmid Chacham that was nifter, presumably. And still, you see, you're allowed to show all these signs of aveilus out of respect for one Talmid Chacham. So the Gemara says kavet tarik amrit kavet tarik diyachid chamer Talmud tarik diyachid kal. Kavet hatayr is very different. And I remember we made a cheshbon when he said this, when Rabbi learned this Gemara, that if you think about, I think he brought in Rabbi Yashiv, how many thousands of hours he learned over his lifetime. So when someone learns like this, it's not klech diyachid. He's not learning right now for an hour. It's a cumulative learning for his whole entire life is present in that moment, and that's what you mean mechaber. Amar Rava. Rava is going to discuss all the different madregas of what's more chamer. That's what we just discussed. What's more chamer? Megillah, Avoda, Torah, Yachid, Rabbim. So Rava is going to go through a few examples, then he's going to ask at the end what he's not sure about. Amar Rava. Pshitali, it's pasha to me. Avoda mikra Megillah, mikra Megillah adif. Medir Beisi Bachanina. Talmud Torah or Mikra Megillah Adif. Right? This Rabbi Yossi Rechanina was the one who said from the Raya he said from Mishpacha Mishpacha. Rabbi Yossi Rechanina from Mishpacha Mishpacha. Then the fact that the fact that the Rebbe was Saimach to leave. So we know that Megillah is Mikra Megillah Adif from Talmud Torah. Torah Meis Mitzvah Adif. Meditania we learned to Brisa Mevatlin and Talmud Torah Lahaitzi Meis. Beferish a Brisa that says if someone's dealing with a Meis Mitzvah, you move out the Talmud Torah to deal with the Meis. It says Mitzvah v'chnatz Skala. Avoda u'Meis Mitzvah Avoda u'Meis Mitzvah Meis Mitzvah Adif. How do we know? Because it's a drasha from a nazir. It says Malachaisai. The Tanya Lachaisai Ma Tamalemer Haresha Hayadach Lishchai. That's Alapesa. So the Gemara lists all the relatives that he can't be Matama to, and we learn out from each one another chumrah. I would think that you could do something you can't, but you could be Matama to a Meis Mitzvah. So the last drasha of it is Malachaisai the Tanya or Lachaisai Ma Tamalemer. So what's Lachais come to teach you? Someone who's doing either of these two essays, and the reason why I think these are picked is because they're the most chamer mitzvahs to say. They're both have a chiyuv kares if they're not done. The shamash shemeis loy meis, and he finds out that one of his dying krivim are nifter. Yachli yitama. I would think that you should stop what you're doing and go mitama to the relative. Amrit, we say no, lo yitama. You should not be metama. So Chaisa teach you should not be metama. Now Yachal Kashem she'ena metama LaChaisa Kach ena metama LaMeisnitza Tama. Lama Ula Chaisa. Chaisa who the ena metama Ava metama LaMeisnitza. So Dafka in this case that you wouldn't be metama to these cases, but you would be metama to Meisnitza. So Meisnitza is Daicha Avoda even. By Rava asked a question like this. By Rava Mikra Megillah. So we know we took both of these examples and we moved them to the top of the chain. Mikra Megillah we said trumps everything, and Meis Mitzvah trumps everything. But now, what happens to these two? If you have a choice between these two, so do we say Mikra Megillah Adif Mishum the Pesum Nisa? Do we see that you have Mikra Megillah Adif because there's an Indian of Pesum Nisa? Idama Meis Mitzvah Adif Mishum Kavod Abrius, or maybe there's an Indian of Kavod Abrius by Meis Mitzvah, and that trumps Mikra Megillah. But after he asked the question, he answered it. Meis Mitzvah Adif. Why? The Amamag God will cover Abrius Shadaicha Eloisa say Shabbatayra. The cover Abrius is so strong that it's Daicha Eloisa say. The question is, where do you see that it's Daicha Eloisa say? Rashi says that it's from Hashavas Aveda, that a person doesn't have to return an item if it's not Bakavadiktim. Mashal doesn't like that, and it really doesn't. Like, it's a little bit tough of a pshat to swallow. The Mashal says that it's talking about like sasar. You're allowed to do the rabbanans because of amazement, because of kavod abrius. Not only amazement, it's a stam kavod abrius. You're allowed to do certain derabanans, and you're not over like sasar, which is the isser to do derabanans because they are derabanans. Gufa, Zakti Gemara Baita. I'm a lady. We learned earlier that a krach from Medina, from that pasuk, we said that the krach, not only does the walled city lay on the 15th, but anything that's close to it. We learned that it's either or. It doesn't have to be both conditions. So Bishlam in there, how do I find a place that I could see that's not close to me? You're going if a walled city is on top of a mountain, I could see it even though I'm not so close. How are you going to find something that's very close to me that I can't see? The opposite. It's low in a valley, so I can't see it. It's below me, and it's still, because it's close, even though I can't see it, I'm still nimshach afterwards, and I go and I land on the 15th. If I go after that city. Now we're going to have a bunch of members by Yeshua ben Levi now. This is talking about not Megillah. This is talking about Bati Erachaima, which is the restrictions about buying houses certain years after you purchase them, how much time you have to purchase them back in Eretz Yisrael. So regular city, I think you have till Yovel, or you have Yovel that goes back, and a walled city you have. Bati Erachaima has, I think, 2 years you have to buy it back. So he says, a city that became walled after it was already settled is not considered a walled city as far as Bati Erachaim are concerned. My time, the chsiv the ish kiyim karbayis moishav Erachaima shehukaf ulbesayf yashav. So it's mashma moishav Erachaima, that he was moishav in a walled in a city that was already walled. The loy sheyashav ulbesayf hukaf, and not that they built a city and then they walled it. So that's his drush from the pasuk. Now this is talking about Megillah. So a walled city. So over here, krach does not mean a walled city. Over here, krach means, even though the whole time krach meant the walled city, over here it means the large cities that lay on the 14th, that do not go back to the Yom Echnisa. Krach she'ein b'yasar batlanen. Over here, batlan is a good thing. That a city does not have 10 people designated, 10-person kailo, that they're designated full-time to learn. They're considered a small city. Tanina, Ezo Ir Gedayla, Kol Sheish by Yisar Batanan, Pax Mekan Hareze Kfar. So over here we were saying Krach Itzrich Le Afagav the Mikli Le Afagav the Mikli Le Ma'am. Over here we're coming to tell you that it's not enough. We use the word, this halach is teaching you that let's say it's a very busy town, and there's always 10 guys that are sitting and learning, but they're not miyuchad. They're all from out of town. Let's say you have Miami. They don't have their own kaila, let's say, and everyone's always there for some vacation or another. So there's always happens to be 10 guys in Spanish learning. That's not good enough for this. That's considered a small city. It has to be miyuchad, special in this city, designated minion of kailin galat. A city that was destroyed and then it was rebuilt, it's considered like a krach. Like the my charav. What do you mean by charav? So if you're going to say that it's referring to the walls, and that's why it goes back to its status of yashav in, lo yashav lai. If the walls weren't rebuilt and it doesn't get the status back of a krach, well, that's not true. Asher loy chayma. It says in the pasuk Asher loy chayma. It's read with a vav, but the ksiv in the Torah says with an aleph, which comes to tell you av b'she'ein loy achshav v'hayu loy kaidim l'kain, that it's still considered a walled city for Bati Erechayma. Elamai charav shecharav ma'asar batlanin. You have it must be that what's charav is that the kailo was abolished. for whatever reason, and then they reinstated it. And now, if it goes back, great. If not, then it stays in its status. So I guess the chiddush is that we're not worried that it's going to go again down madrega, and once we reinstitute the kailo, the ilam, they're granted big city status. Another halacha by Shuman Levi, Lud v'ainai v'geyach Hashem mukafes chayim v'maisa yishur b'yisrael Shuman Haber. So these cities were walled from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. In fact, the Gemara v'hani Yeshua benani v'elfal benani. Yeshua didn't build them. Elfal built them. The Chsiv u'bnei elfal avar masa v'shama who ban as Ainai v'es Lud u'bnei Sa'ah. He built these two cities that we referenced. There's another one that he didn't reference over here. But you see that these two cities were built by Elfal. And according to the way you're understanding this, Asa benani the Chsiv. Asa came after Elfal. Asa benani the Chsiv. Vayiven Asa es Arya b'tzaretz Asher Yehuda. So we see that he also built them. Amar Zahani Hamnu Kavos Chaim Ma'aseh Yeshua ben Nun Haber. Charav Bimei Pelagish Megillah. These cities were originally walled in times of Yeshua ben Nun. Then there was this huge fight between all the Shvatim and Binyamin, and they got destroyed. These cities got destroyed. But Asa Alfal Banani, and then Alfal built them back up. How the info they fell down again. Asa Sheptsinu. He made Shiputzim. He fixed them. Asa came and fixed them. So all three are true. They were Sai around the time of Yeshua ben Nun, so they have status from that city. Then Alfal repaired them after they broke the first time, and Asa came and repaired them the second time. They can I'm the Chsiv Yamel Yehuda. Now the Asar Ma'eva. Asa is saying to Yehuda, he was the king of Yehuda. He was saying to his chavra, to his countrymen, "Come, let us build these cities." But you don't. It's much. They were already. Let's build these cities that were already. It sounds like they were already cities. The arm have a mikar shmamina. It's a good raya. That it makes sense that they were already citied, like they were already had a. They already were citied, but that's not a verb. But and he was rebuilding them. Another halacha. Nashim chayavas Megillah. She'af hein hayu b'ayis hanes. Rashi says that Nashim are chayiv because they are also part of the Nes. Rashi explains that they are also part of the Nes. It's not referring to Esther because the Rashbam says Esther, but it's not so posh like that. But Rashi says that simple. They were going to be killed out also. They were part of the Gezer. Amr Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Another halacha. Purim shachal yes b'Shabbos. Shal v'dashim in shal b'yayim. You do a Purim Joshua. You do a Shabbos Purim Joshua. In fact, my Ari Purim, it's not a Chiddush but Purim. I feel Yom Tov Nami. Every Yom Tov we do this. Tanya. Moshe Tiken Lehem Liyisrael Sheyun Asham V'Dashim B'Nyan Sheyayim Hilchos Pesach V'Pesach Hilchos Atzeres V'Atzeres Hilchos V'Chag V'Chag. So what's the Chiddush? You're not saying anything special. So he says, I'm thinking more Purim Tzricha Le Ma'u D'Teim M'Nigzim Mishum D'Rabba K'Mashlan. Rabba has Gzera all over about not carrying the Lovim and not carrying Shofar and not carrying Megillah. But if you're going to darshan about Megillah in Shul, maybe you're going to get all mixed up and you end up carrying a Megillah in Shul. So he said, no, we're not Geyser, Drashas Atu Kriya. You have to repeat it. You have to do it. You have to do it at night and day, like we do. This is Esther Malka's Kapitel Chav Beis. Elikai Ekra Yomam v'loi Sana v'layla v'loi Dumili. I cried out to you at night, and I cried out to you, and you didn't answer, and I cried out to you, and I cried to you a day, and you didn't answer, and I cried to you at night, and there was silence. There was no respite. He didn't answer. So we know the Mekrai B'Layla the Masisin Mama. Maybe you do Megillah at night, and then you learn Mishnayos Megillah by day. Amalu Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Didim Farshli Minayid Rabbi Chia Barava, can go into Amri Inshi. Learn this piyut, this zug from Esther as follows. Ava Parchasa the Ha V'Esnayu V'Esnayu. No, it's a form of repetition. So you see, whatever you do at night, you do the same thing in the morning. Itmanami Amar Rabbi Chalbai Amar Ula Bira Chayib Adam Likras as a Megillah B'Layla V'Nefes B'Yam Shalem L'man Yizam Mechachal V'Layidam Hashem Lekayla Adam Maydaka. Okay, so we can go a little further. The Mishnah says, so we see that the cities, the kfarim go back to the original, to either Thursday or Monday before. Rabbi Chanina says that this is a kula on the kfarim so that they're able to provide sustenance for the chavra for the Purim Suda. Remember, you mean to tell me that the krachim have it? It sounds like you're saying that it's to benefit the large cities. The large cities need food for Purim Suda, so we're going to allow the kfarim to predate the Megillah. So on Purim, they're not busy with Megillah. They could just provide food. They could just deal with deliveries. But it's not like that. We learned the Mishnah that's counter that. Chaliyas b'sheni. If Yudal falls out on Sheni on Monday, then all the unwalled cities lane on either Tuesday or Thursday, right? On Tuesday we're talking about now. And if what you're saying is true that the whole takana is for the krachim, for the large cities, then likadnu liyam knisa, let them get bumped from Monday back to Thursday so that they're still available to provide food for the krachim on Monday. The Gemara says, no, havalahu asar, then you're going to have 10. That's going to be on the 10th day of Adar. And that you're not, and that's already too far. So we said Yud Aleph, so from Sunday we can go to Thursday, but from Monday to Thursday it doesn't work. Tashma, Chali is b'chamishi kfarim, karim by b'yayim. The same thing, but just now with Thursday. V'im Isa, and if it's true that you want them to be open for the krachim, put them back to the acharasu. Let them go back to Monday, which is 11, which is fine. And we don't go backwards from one for Yom Menachis to the other Yom Menachis. Tashma, this is the final question. Tashma, Amar Yehuda Amos said, "Makim shenachas b'shen v'chamishi." This is Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah on the next Amud. When do we say that? When do we give them the opportunity to lay on Yud Aleph through Yud Aleph Beis Yud Gimel? That's only in a place where the kfarim, where they go in anyway in Shein v'chamishi. They have to definitely on the 14th. If you're going to say this whole takana was just to benefit the large cities so that they have food, because these guys don't happen to go in Mondays and Thursdays, that's why they should lose our food. They shouldn't have food for Yom Tov. They shouldn't have food for Purim. Don't say it's Kadesha Yisapku, which would be mashma that it's a benefit for the Krachim, the large cities, which Yisapku Mayim Mazan Ela Ema Mefnesha Masapkin Mayim Mazan Nachim Shubakrachim. Say that no, this is just a reward. This is just a reward because they always provide. So now we're going to let them off easy, and they don't have to come in a second time that week, or a third time. Shkayach. Okay, just did it? Oh, stop recording.